At Enterprise Diamond School, we specialize in wraparound care. Now, the children who come into Enterprise Diamond School come from they live in deprived areas, so they come in with a number of issues. And it could be sometimes that they haven't had breakfast because there's nothing. I've had one child come in, had no breakfast because the milk was off. And if he'd gone to get milk, he would be late for school, so it's better to come into school. We have children, so we provide meals, we provide breakfast if the child is hungry, we provide lunch, we provide, provided clothes for those children, not just for the uniform. I provide their shoes. If their shoes are tight, money is tight at home, I buy their shoes. If it's cold outside and their coats are inadequate, we'll buy them a coat. And what's part of the wraparound care is just being a listening ear. Just sitting down with those children on a one-to-one and just talking through what bothers them and giving them that, hope when they leave, then they can see an end to it, or a means of how to get through the problems that some of them have to go through. And it isn't just this problems with peer pressure, it's just problems, because some of them they don't really see a future for themselves in this country. And it's just talking those children through some of the things that they might have to encounter as they grow up and giving them some hope. And that is what wraparound care is all about, as well as the mentors and everything else, and reaching out to their parents, because the parents have got to be involved in what is going on, so that there's a continuation of methods, if you like. If something is working at home, well, then we do a continuation of good practice. If something is working well at home, well, then we can sit down and discuss it so that that can be used in school and vice versa. So when they're getting the same message at home and at school, it gives that sort of consistency, which is what they need. But the wraparound care is physical, it's emotional, and I think the emotional even more important than the physical, so that those children, they feel safe, they feel wanted, they feel loved even, because there's nothing wrong with giving a hug every now and then. Okay, let's just talk about it. And there's no stigma attached to it. There's no sexual connotations about giving a troubled child a hug and said, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. So that is what we do every day. Because you'll have some child who will come in perhaps late, or sometimes you just read the expression on their faces, they come in and you know that something is wrong somewhere. And say, okay, let's talk about it. And we would leave the room, and the children who are working, they know what the situation is, so they would continue working, and I would go off with that one child, okay, let's talk about it. Because we can just see from the expression on their faces when they come in, or his or her face, that something has gone wrong. And we sit down and talk about it, and that's what wraparound care is. Now, in mainstream school, in a class of 30 or 35, little Johnny comes in late and he's got issues. He needs to, first of all, brace himself for a detention, either lunchtime, after school, or whatever, or the fact he'd better come in quietly and sit down because the teacher hasn't got the time to address that. And he knows that within the next 20 minutes, he's got to switch off from that subject mode into a different one. We don't have that at Enterprise Diamond. We complete one thing, and when it is understood, then we can move on to the next subject or whatever. We don't have a strict, you must have 35 minutes for this and 25 minutes for that and 35 or 1 hour. It's when it's finished, it's a natural end, and then we move on to the next one, and we move on to the next one. And it's pretty much pupil-led. So that I have, for example, let's say within English, which is one of my subjects, though I teach a multitude of subjects. Let's say within English, we've been learning something specific. And I felt that at the end of that session, that it wasn't quite learned, well, then we can address it the next day. I don't feel driven to, okay, I have a scheme of work and I must finish this by this particular date. No, because children learn they develop at different stages. And they must be allowed, while this is their childhood, to develop and progress naturally. When you try to rush a child into coming into something that everybody must be as one, that's where the failures come in. And if we repeat the mistakes of mainstream school, then we will get exactly the same results. Because common sense tells me that if you keep on doing the same thing, you will get the same result. So we have to do something that is completely different. and where the children feel safe, they feel protected, they feel wanted, they're there because they want to be there. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, what color or what culture you are, etc. What is more important is you have to have love for children, the know-how to put them in the right direction, and also to ensure that they get the best out of it. Now, one of the unique things about what I advocate is the mentoring scheme. And what we'd done originally, we had recruited mentors of diverse careers, from gardeners to doctors to bankers, etc. Because not every child will go to university. Some children will go to work straight after school, some will go after college, some will go after university. But just to have each child mentored from the age of 11 by a mentor from the world of work in a field that they might be interested in. And so a year before that child was ready to start work, the mentors would be instrumental in securing the first work placement. It meant that every child who comes through our hands doesn't have to worry about where their first job would be. It means that they can also concentrate in their final year on the program of study, whatever it is, and to do the best, knowing that they didn't have to send out 100 applications and wonder how many they were going to receive. And working in partnership with industry, making sure that some of the teaching of vocational training meets industry standards, and just preparing those young people. But also, it's also what the true meaning of what a community school is like. Now, I go past some of the large schools out, mainstream schools, and you see this community school. But in reality, it's community school in that after hours, it's might be let to various members of the community to carry on activities. For me, community school means that from the time a child is enrolled in the school, it means that the parents and any older siblings, particularly those who are out of work, also have access to the same mentors. They can come on board. There's a separate enrichment program for parents and siblings out of work so that they can also benefit from the school. And when you have parents who are coming back into school and they're benefiting from the education that they should have had, it gives a completely different light, and you get a different kind of support from parents who, in the end, they help to drive their children's education forward because they're using themselves as an example. They don't want their children to be going back to school at 40 to do the things that could be done between the 13, 14, 15, 16. So you get a different kind of enthusiasm that comes from that model. And for me, that is what a community school is all about. The whole community benefits from it. Okay, another important thing to note about our approach is the use of mentors from our community from diverse careers. Because a lot of the children who are in school, and currently those that I work with now, are all from single-parent families. So the lack of particularly male black role models is crucial. And by exposing those children or connecting those children from a very early age to positive role models within the community so that they can see and they have something to aspire to, can only benefit them. And we have got members of our community who work at all sorts of levels. We have got black doctors, we've got black dentists, we've got black barristers, we've got black teachers, few head teachers, not many of them, but we've got, certainly within the NHS, we've got loads of different, we've got mechanics, we've got everything. So by using those people within the community, even within restaurants, etc., by bringing those children in connection with those people, it gives them something to aspire to and to give them the realization that they too can achieve, because the adults, they had a lot more obstacles to go through to reach where they are today. So there is no reason why they can't succeed just as well as those can, or even do even better. I'm saying, in my curriculum at my school, Black history plays a very important function. It's an exciting journey, and it certainly has given the children a sense of pride in who they are and where they've come from, and what is possible, because when you look at the things that were achieved by ancient Africa, for example, and what is achievable now, We did an interesting comparison where we looked at ancient Africa in the 16th century, and we looked at ancient Britain in the 16th century. And the children were able to make their own comparisons as to who was civilized and who wasn't. Because the things that were achieved by the Africans as early as in the 1500s, Europe hadn't even caught up, and some of the things that they did, Europe still hasn't caught up. So it gives those children a sense of pride, and that is something that needs to be rolled out in all of the mainstream schools, but there are not a lot of people who are prepared to invest in it. They're not trained in it. It's not part of the teacher training. It certainly wasn't. I had to make a personal decision to include Black history, and for me it was a journey that I took alongside the children when I started, and you just can't get enough of it. It is absolutely fascinating. You know, there's just more. The more you uncover, the more there is to uncover. And taking those children along with the journey has been one of the most pleasurable things that I've experienced in the last year.